chase, and no matter what, I'm living. Put that on everything. I got a dream to chase, and no matter what, I'm
So welcome guys to the second meeting of the Rotary year 2021-2022. I'm so glad you could join us today. I'm your host today. My name is President Wilson Kamau from RC Nairobi Madaraka. I'm seeing a lot of visitors and fresh faces today. So thank you so much for coming on board. I would like now to call this meeting to order. So we've officially begun the meeting. And as we begin, I'd like to invite Rotarian Njoki Ndongo to lead us with the Rotary Grace. Njoki?
Thank you, President Wilson. Good evening, friends and family of Rotary. Let's say the Rotary Grace. O God and giver of all good, we thank thee for our daily food. May Rotary friends and Rotary ways help us to serve thee all our days. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Rotarian Njoki. And now for our loyal toast. If you have a glass, charge it. If you don't have a glass, a hand over heart. A toast to the President of the Republic of Kenya.
To the President.
The President.
To the President.
Thank you. And now, I'd like us to recite the forward test. And for this session, I'll invite Rotarian Fred to lead us in this session. Fred, please carry on.
Okay, thank you. The forward test of the things we think, say, or do. 1, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Rotarian Fred. And now to the next session. I've seen we have quite a few guests and Rotarians from the Rotary clubs in Kampala, in Uganda. So I'd like to give this opportunity for them to just to say their name and their classification and which club they are from. So I'll start with, I think the person, I want Patrick to help me. And Patrick, he's still around. He left. Sorry, I can't see. I think he left. Sorry. Are they our brothers from Uganda in the meeting?
Yes, we have President also.
Yes. Who help me, Andrew?
President, I'm in, and it's a pleasure being in this fellowship. Andrew from Kampala, Sese.
Kampala, Sese. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so I'll just pick on the number guests together. So I see Kathy Kimathi. Please tell us where you're from. I think she's out.
That's from the
Christian Ogola.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good evening, fellow Rotarians and guests. My name is Christian Ogola from the Rotary Club of Langata. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us. I see Rotaract Dennis Simiyu.
Good evening, this is Catherine Timothy.
Oh yes, Kathy, sorry. Just go
Sorry,
ahead.
my name was a bit off. I'm Kathy Kimathi from Rotary Club of Karen. And my classification is hospitality.
Thank you for joining us. Dennis? Dennis, another opportunity. I see Kindness Sabiti. Hope I say that right. Kindness Sabiti. Are you in the house?
She introduced herself on the chat, President Wilson. She has a problem with her mic.
Okay, thank you so much, Richard and Joki. I see Noreen Miringo.
Thanks, President Wilson. Good evening to everyone. As you've heard, the name is Noreen Wangari. I'm not a Rotarian, but here on invitation from a Rotarian within the Madaraka Club.
Thank you for joining us. What's your classification, if you may ask?
I'm in sales and marketing.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Let me see here. Stella Boydera. If you're with us, just please introduce yourself and your classification. Okay. So I hope, is there somebody else who would like to, I guess I've missed out on? We can give you this opportunity to introduce yourself. Okay. Okay. So we'll go ahead. But if you're a visiting Rotarian Rotaractor or a guest for the club, please indicate your details on the chat so that we may recognize you as we progress with the meeting. Thank you so much for that session. And now move on to announcements. I'll start off with Rotarian Victor Muto. Muto. Muto has disappeared. Anyway, cool. So I'll make this announcement on behalf of Muto. So on the 24th of July this month, we'll be heading to Embu for a project. Our Embu project will be doing two things. We'll be planting trees in two schools, and we'll also be painting blackboards for the two schools. So we'll kick off the event from 9 a.m. in Embu, and hopefully we'll have finished before 5 p.m. So we are requesting for your presence, all Rotarians and guests that are here, for your presence and participation in the project. There is a lot of value that we gain from this, and as we said earlier in our first meeting, we're having one of the Rotary goals is one of the key areas of focus in Rotary nowadays is environment, and as a district we aim to plant over 1 million trees. So this is one of the this will go a long way in achieving that goal. So we want to invite everyone of you in the meeting on the 24th of July this month. We'll be heading over to Embu to plant trees and to paint blackboards. So we'll be also requesting for your help in procuring the materials for the project. So we need paint, we need black chalk, we need charts to help the project succeed, and also trees for that matter. So we are looking forward to hosting each and every one of you on 24th of July. So mark your calendar. We release the poster. The prices for those that will be joining us and staying overnight, the price is only 3,500, and that includes your meals and your accommodation, which is also plus your breakfast for the next day on Sunday. So it's going to be a fun event and also a worthwhile event for us to participate in. Thank you so much. Now, the next, I'd like to invite our treasurer to give a brief. Keshi, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, fellow Rotarians, Rotaractors, and family and friends of Rotary. And I would like to also welcome our Uganda family. My announcement is to the members on sub-payments. The RI invoices will be coming sometime next week. So please let's make our payments so that we can be able to pay the country dues, the district dues, and the RI dues on time. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Keshi. I'd like to give this opportunity to anyone in the group or Rotarian Rotaractor who has an announcement. Please let us know. Any announcements from other Rotarians, Rotaractors in the group? Okay, thanks. So we will have, if you have an announcement, we'll make it during our SAA session. So I will move on to the next session where I will invite Rotarian Henry Dirango to give, to introduce our guest speaker. Rotarian Henry, take it away.
Thank you, President Wilson. Our guest speaker this evening is not a stranger to many of us. We have known him through our interactions whenever we visit Kampala and whenever we host Rotarians from Kampala. He started his Rotary journey as an interactor, then Rotaract, and now he's a member of Rotary Club of Kampala, Airlines. He served in both club boards and ECA committees and has a passion for fundraising for humanity. He is a family man, a father of 2 sons, and education-wise, he's an alumni of Makerere Universities, where he has a master's in rural development and has worked in the oil and gas sector. And now he's working with the aviation sector, as the senior admin officer and head of administration at Uganda Airways. Welcome, and it's a great joy to have you speak to us, Andrew Tumusime.
Thank you very much, President Wilson, and of course, my brother Henry, for an almost close introduction you've given us this evening. It's always a pleasure talking to Madaraka, especially the members, because we regale a lot on too many things. And when President Wilson spoke to me about today's program, I had no choice but to pay my own homage to my beloved country, Kenya. And I would wish at this point in time to convey our warm regards to all of you from Uganda, from my president, and from the various clubs that usually visit your country. Today's topic, as you note, is one that, as one of my colleagues mentioned, that he has taken particular interest in attending today's fellowship because of the topic. So I want to thank you, President Wilson, that you ably picked a topic that opens friendship, because our first flight as an airline was to Nairobi. And 10 years ago, a ticket from Entebbe to Nairobi was $800. And that made that journey probably to date the most expensive 45 to an hour journey in the world. I would wish to, therefore, this evening, straight now go to this famous bird called Uganda Airlines, its rebirth. Of course, as you note, 2 months ago, Uganda Airlines won the youngest airline award, and that probably gave a smile to the two biggest shareholders. Uganda Airlines is the government-owned airline by two ministries, Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Works, who are the parent company. They manage in terms of shareholding on behalf of the 43 million citizens. Uganda Airline was produced out of an old airline, which had been initially started by a famous African called Idi Amin Dada. Forgive us that most of the people still think he's the president of our small country. He's no longer, but he began the first airline in 1977 with 2 Boeings. And at that time, they were flying to Europe and the Middle East. And after some time, in 2000, because of too many challenges, it collapsed. Of course, there's a lot of debt. And that time also, the Brentwood institutions, that is the World Bank, IMF, were running down many African countries on things they thought were an exaggeration of capital expenditure, things like the airlines and so on. So they thought you could thrive on neighborhood or promote more road usage and water. So that airline unfortunately closed in 2000, and it had a lot of debt, mismanagement, a lot of government interference that time. And of course, government is a very bureaucratic arm when it comes to decision making. 20 years later, the current president, His Excellency, mooted an idea through a development plan. This development plan is usually a short-term tool used to project the strategic direction of the country, the strategic economic status of the country. And through that, a new airline that you now see was born in 2018, though it had its maiden flight in 2019. That airline, initially the government had tried to start it in 2014, but because of the bureaucracy and politics, it did not take off. In 2016, a task force was set up by various people from the private sector and the public sector, and some returning Ugandans from Kenya Airways, Rwanda Air, because when we closed in 2000, most of the technical people who had developed capacity here went for greener pastures in Kenya and the Middle East. So some of them volunteered to come back, and the task force was therefore set up in 2016 to start this airline. But between 2000 and 2018, the private sector had other ideas. A few people came up with airlines. For instance, Royal Daisy, which operated for 3 years, up to 2004, 2005, it closed. Then there came in another one, which was very interestingly owned by some Kenyans, Ugandans, and South Africans. It was called Victoria International Airlines, which worked about 5 years. They're quite hard-working commercial managers, I think largely because of the Kenyan marketing aggression style they have. And I think to date, we still remember those guys in their marketing department are quite hard. And as you note, Uganda, towards 2014, 2007, had been given a right to host the Commonwealth conference, commonly called CHOGM here. And then Aga Khan looked at an opportunity to make money. So he started an airline, which many of you still confused with Uganda Airline, and it was called Air Uganda. Air Uganda had its structures in Italy. What you saw in Uganda was more of a shell. And therefore, he went to the IMF and said, I'm doing a project for humanity. this country does not have an airline. And these monies are always out there incidentally, but we never get to know. So the IMF gave him money, he procured planes, came to Uganda, they gave him rights, named the airline, Air Uganda, and there he went. He made profits within 5 years, he had already refunded the money, and of course, now complacence of Africans as usual cropped in, and 7 years later it closed. So in 2014, we were left stranded. So the president thought that being a Pan-Africanist would have to rely on our big brother Kenya and our young brother Rwanda. Unfortunately, the air travel costs shot up into the sky because, as I told you, that traveling from Entebbe to Nairobi was close to $800. And I'm sure President Wilson, that tells me that you can travel to London to New York at just $250 or $300. But here we were coming to Madaraka at $800, which was a lot of money for us. So he got fed up with that, and through a cabinet memo, he invited his cabinet to a retreat, and they discussed. Amidst them, there were consultants, part of them retired Kenya Airways administrators who advised on how to start up this airline. And of course, many businessmen, shrewd businessmen came in and wanted to lease the airline, the planes, and he wasn't in for that deal, so he opted to buy 4 planes for the start, 75 carrier planes, narrow body, famously called CRJs, and they're quite efficient in terms of flying regional hubs and also fuel consumption. They were a newer version of an older version called Bombardiers. And we got the 4, we started flying. And but before we started flying, they finally had to institute a management team, a board, and the board had both from the private sector and the 2 famous shareholding representatives, one from Ministry of Works and the other from Ministry of Finance. Then the rest came from the business sector and the rest. And after that, the board began recruiting the management through headhunting, secondment, and of course interviews. Once that was done, they started flying to Nairobi. Our maiden flight in 2019 was to Nairobi, and was a fully booked flight to and fro. I am sure many of you who have flown this bird live to test a great menu and in-flight service that we offer. And after that, we began flying to other destinations, and that was Tanzania. We had to add South Sudan and the famous Mogadishu flight. Uganda Airlines, incidentally, is the first flight in Mogadishu, 7 a.m. every day. And that's after AMISOM has swept. In the short term, we thought that we would concentrate on the regional hubs, because we had to also begin signing what we call buses. Buses, of course, are bilateral aviation sharing agreements, and they're very important for one to fly, because when you have signed up a bus, that means that you get back to ask for more rights. Rights like you would call 5th rights. That means that I can afford to land into Nairobi and also fly to probably Kisumu and out, or fly to Nairobi and pick passengers and get to go to Mombasa. However, I need to add at this point in time that if you have some contacts in the Kenyan Civil Aviation Authority, to please invite them for a Rotary Fellowship, because they have denied us the 5th rights to fly from Entebbe to Nairobi and pick passengers to Mombasa. Our flight to Mombasa actually is a direct flight from Entebbe. For us, it would make more sense to come via Nairobi and proceed to Mombasa. So President Wilson, I want to ask you that you invite probably the managing director to join your club, and through that, maybe over a cup of tea, you raise my request. So we are currently flying to around 7 destinations, including Dar es Salaam, Nairobi, Mogadishu, Juba, Bujumbura, Kinshasa. Our long-term plan is to include West African countries, Accra, Lagos, and also, as you note, last month we launched South Africa. We are yet to include Zambia, and also the most lucrative route for us, which is a 30 minutes route, is Goma. We're yet to do that, but we hope that had it not been for COVID, we would have been already up there. The long-term plans for now is to have the 2 Airbuses that we have brought. These are newer Airbuses, and they carry 257 passengers, very good consumption, good inbuilt technology with Wi-Fi on board 24 hours, as long as you're moving. Those will be off-continental planes, and our first destination should have been Dubai by end of June. Unfortunately, COVID has hampered that plan, but we're still doing now the desk work with clearing and back and forth aviation clearing requirements. And after that, we'll be doing London. Fortunately, UK has given us probably one of the best slots. You arrive in London at 6:30 a.m. Now, 10 years ago, Qatar paid $78 million for a 5:30 a.m. slot. But we're given this more of on a bilateral understanding, because the current Prime Minister, Johnson, was a journalist here who tried to come around in the early days, struggling, trying to cover stories and covering our president, who was formerly a rebel leader. So they had built some rapport. And once he traveled to the UK, just gave it to him. And it's one of the best arrival times in London if you've been there, 6:30 a.m. So that will be one of our destinations. And obviously we'll be looking at the Kenyan market, because we want to go to New Delhi. And you have a big community of Indians in Kenya, bigger than what we have here. But of course, you know that the biggest business Indian community are Somalis, and many of them are in Uganda and have Kenyan roots. And then we shall also get to go to Guangzhou. We have plans that we have not seriously incubated of going to the US. And of course, it's not an easy route, because a US trip could cost you close to $200,000, a single flight operational cost. So that's not easy money. And we're trying to see, how we can get there. But of course, it's one of our routes that we want to do after Dubai, London, New Delhi, and Guangzhou. Certainly, we also want to partner with big giants like Emirates and Kenya Airways on what we call liner agreements, that I can drop you into Nairobi and Kenya Airways can take you onward to New York. So that then we can have what we call the backdoor revenue sharing. Your ticket reads once that it's a Uganda Airlines ticket, but when you get into Kenya Airways, then you can move onwards to New York without paying an extra back, because you've bought the ticket already. Once those destinations come to fruition here, then we'll have opened up our country to internationally, because spending 20 years without an airline cost us a lot, because we are depending on Kenya Airways, Rwanda Air, largely for patriotic reasons, as the president loves to say that. But of course, I'm sure they got a lot of money out of us, and we suffered capital flight. There were very many reasons, President and my colleagues, for setting up this airline. Of course, it goes without mention that is a Pan-African kind of feeling to own an airline. I want to say that even Somalia owns an airline, even Malawi owns an airline. How about us? So it was more of a Pan-African prestigious kind of undertaking, which comes with a cost nonetheless. but also it was in fulfillment of the National Development Plan and the current government's manifesto, party manifesto of starting an aviation company. Another reason really for starting this airline, as you know, we're a very landlocked country, and therefore you can only survive by having an airline. I was once in Qatar, and about 70 tourists were coming to Windi. Windi is home to the gorillas, and a certain airline that time left them or canceled the flight. And remember, when they issue permits, gorilla tracking permits, they count the day of arrival and the day of departure. And once you miss out, that permit is dead. So here we were, and these Orientals caused the stampede at the airport. And for 2 hours, there were no flights in and out because they'd been left by an airline for Windi. So this airline was opened, therefore, to open other aspects of the economy like tourism, agriculture, and as you note, we have oil that we should be producing in 2023. Just last week, they signed up $4 billion undertaking for local content. And as you all equally note, we have opened up a second international airport in the oil city. That means President Wilson can fly direct from JKIA straight to the oil fields without coming via Entebbe. So that means we'll have the second international airport based in the oil city. Also, as you note, Uganda is becoming increasingly the preferred destination. I know a good number of you have visited Uganda. Of course, I know Emma Mwanga likes traveling by road, either way coming to Uganda or going to Nairobi. But I know Wilson and Henry, or Toto, and largely because when you're stressed up in Nairobi, you come and find solace in Kampala. This airline was also started or set up largely to tap into the increased demand. Of course, as you note that 7 years ago, we had reached the 1 million mark of air travel passengers. And of course, just 3 years ago, we hit 1.8 million air travel passengers. This is far much lesser than the JKIA traffic. JKIA has 7 million. You can imagine we have a long way to go, but it's projected that probably the next 7 to 10 years, we'll be hitting 7 million passengers as well. I hope JKIA will have stagnated still at that figure of 7 million so that we can move together as brothers. Of course, you must have noted earlier that when we had Kenya Airways, we had our brothers in Rwanda and other airlines, we were suffering from a kind of capital flight, forex flight, because remember at that time Kenya Airways could not even take our own shillings to buy a ticket. Whereas right now you can buy your ticket in shillings, Uganda shillings or dollars. At that time it was strictly dollars if you're buying a Kenya Airways ticket. So the little forex we had even then was spent by these travelers going out of the country. And that also meant that the treasury here was suffering. So we had to control that flight by starting up this airline and indirectly also earn some money, forex, through those who are transiting, those who are coming in, or those even who are going out. Also, remember that there was a need therefore to create also some employment. Uganda has, Wilson, unfortunately you're based in Kenya, but you fit the age group of the many Ugandans. The 70% Ugandans fall in President Wilson's age group. They're very young people. And therefore, the setup had that at the back of the mind, that they will be employing young professionals and probably also get to increase on the tax collection and the tax base therefore. Also, we needed to create a swift passenger movement trail within the region, that Wilson can be in Nairobi at 7 a.m., come to Kampala, have a meeting, and is back by 4 p.m. in Nairobi. The single day you can have even 3 meetings, and that meant that we need to tap into that. However, all those reasons for setting up that airline must not go without mentioning the challenges that we have since, of course, encountered. One, which is very vividly available and with us right now, is COVID. COVID has affected the biggest industry that has been affected is aviation. And you note that aviation opens up to hospitality. So those two industries are the biggest hit by COVID. And that means loss of jobs, it means loss of revenue. And this basically is a nightmare. We also have had tough times competing with the big players like KQ because of the big fleet, the experience. Who are 20 years, we didn't have any airline. So it was quite a very big challenge. But also the increased insurance premium is affecting a young airline. If you've been operating for some time, this premium may not be a big deal, but if you're starting, it's kind of an overhead cost that will impact on your operations. And as you note, we also fly in two areas that are not insurance friendly, and that is Mogadishu and South Sudan. ICAO still thinks those are high risk areas, whereas our best flights on the airline are from Mogadishu and Juba. You have probably 50 to 61% of full cabin. You can imagine, and yet they recognize destinations as of being risky. Also, probably the continued forex flight, because you have too many other contracts. You're paying dollars and you're not flying, because some destinations have had to be cut short. Kenya, we're doing probably 14 flights before COVID. We have had to cut that to 7 flights a week. The same with Juba, where we're doing probably 12. We have had to cut that to 7. We're doing 8 in Mogadishu. We've had to cut to 4. We're doing 6 in Bujumbura. We're doing now 2. We're doing 7 in Dar es Salaam. We've cut short to 4. We're doing 5 in Kinshasa. We're now doing 3. So you can see all these challenges on a young airline have taken some level of toll. But also, another challenge we have is the absence of the trained and employable local content. Most of our people were stolen, forgive my English, by Kenya Airways. Unfortunately, they trained them. At the time of asking them to return home, the guys are pretty expensive. It's too expensive to employ them because they've been certified on very many machines and so on. And as a startup company, that's quite a challenge for us to meet their salaries. Also, I need to say that the aviation space is still big enough for us to operate. Unfortunately, many nations are trying to guard their own hubs, and that brings a very big, or poses a very big challenge for some of the startup airlines, because then you have to certainly start negotiations afresh, and this may not really augur well with the plans that we've been having, because we thought some of those destinations by now they should have been tied up and we're good to go. Of course, now the picture looks a bit dim because of the COVID, and I want to tell you that that wasafiri passengers, travelers, are low budget people. An increment by $1 of a fare that he knows, he will change plan. And yet he needs to be treated as a king. Without him, you're useless. You close the next day. So as other overhead costs are increasingly becoming expensive, without full flight operations, we get now to see that passengers have also reduced because of the requirements to travel. For instance, in Kampala here in Uganda, if you come from Kenya and you don't have a double job, that means that you'll be exposed to our quarantine methods of 4 to 5 hours, where you have to pay $65. Now, $65 is enough to fly you from Paris to London. But here we are at Entebbe charging Wilson, Henry, Ototo, Lizzie, and others, Mahad, Regan, $65. Why? Because you don't have a double job. If you have a double job, you just go through. But remember also that in Uganda, we have not vaccinated 1 million people up to now. We have been living on handouts, COVID handouts. Kenya gives us probably 10,000. Another friendly country gives us 1,000. So, but we have plans to secure. But as you note also that the world market has closed its COVID vaccinations for 2021. So if you want, you have to ask Wilson, who has 1 million, to share with what he has. So it's become quite interesting in these difficult times. But what we're doing also alongside such a challenge is now in-house training of our staff, and so that we prepare by the time we open up to these challenges, we'll be good to go. And also alongside training the current staff, we're also doing recruitment, because Uganda Airlines has 275 employees, and our target in the first quarter was meant to be 572 employees. So we are understaffed, and that means we're taking this time to staff and also to recruit and train. Additionally, we also are doing more desk work in preparation of the countries that I mentioned, where we'll be flying in Dubai, the cities, London, Guangzhou, India, and the US. So either way, we're doing something to ensure that come that day when this thing has finally gone or has been controlled, it will be good to hit the skies. But also, like I've told you, that many airlines have closed because of this challenge. We are grateful to government that they continue to fund this project despite economic times being not favorable, but also that at least a certain return, 40% of what they spend returns into the economy in terms of salaries, overhead costs for contracts, and so on. For instance, just this closing quarter, we spent close to 40 billion within our economy through salaries, local purchases here, and so on. And I think it's a win-win. The business itself, as you note, is not one for the faint-hearted. We thought that, of course, many people were very annoyed when they posted losses within the first year. They thought it was a matatu from Kilimani to probably Langata and back, where you can have some good shillings. And my brother, Ero, was the first man to take me to Kilimani, and I'll never forgive him because it was a very horrific trip. But of course, the community here thinks that we should have made profits within the first year, which is not true. And we think that we'll be looking up between 7 to 10 years to fairly break even. And the government has engaged consultants in the industry to see how this can be achieved. President, I'll take a whole day talking about the airline. And I know that I'm very passionate about the aviation industry now in the region, because I frequently come to Nairobi. 2 hours I'm there, and the next 5 hours I'm back. This industry is the only way for a landlocked country to notice or spur other aspects of its economy, because Kenya is very in a very advantageous position, because they have a coastline, they have a port, and therefore they can afford the luxury of closing an airline and still survive. But hitting the global village buttons, you require an airline as a country. President, with those very few meaningful remarks, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and also share the little experience that I've since garnered since I joined the aviation industry, which is my 4th year. And I'll be very candid enough to admit that I am not the best candidate to speak to you, but I'm the best friend to speak to. Thank you very much, President.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Andrew. Very, very encouraging talk. I'm very, very encouraged by what you've said, and I'm pleased by your presentation. I think I've learned quite a bit. So, I've met Andrew, interacted with Andrew while in Kampala, and I can tell he's a cool dude. He's a guy at the back there, just chilling. But I'm very humbled by his talk here. It's very, very insightful. So don't go away, Andrew. I'd like us to field some few questions from the participants. I've already seen some on the chat, so allow me to share them with you. And for the members and the further participants that are here, if you have a questions, please raise your hand so I can give you an opportunity to ask it, and then we can proceed from there. So I have someone here by the name VK. I hope you tell me your full name. How does Uganda Airlines communicate with customers on disruption of service and delayed baggage? Second question from VK is how is Uganda Airlines sustainable in terms of alternative energy use, cost saving, and environmental conservation? Very hefty, very weighty questions, huh? And Kin Sabiti says, does Uganda Airlines plan to get connected to a global distribution system such as Amadeus, Travelport, or Sub? Is it Sabre? I'm a Sub. Sorry, my English can be So
yeah,
then,
I understand.
Then Henry here is very encouraging. Andrew he says, how has your current assignment shaped you as an individual and as a leader? Mind sharing some of your biggest lessons from this position you've been holding? Then I'll just answer those first, and I'll take you through two more.
All right. Thank you, President, for those questions. I'll start with one that gave you some slight headache. I hope I find some Panadol for the others, and that is that global network system called Amadeus. It's the best. It's the best interline system to use anywhere in the world, and I need to say that we have just acquired it. We probably are doing our 23rd day, and our maiden system running is in Johannesburg, where we're testing it right now. I'm sure it will take us 2 to 3 months to be up and running using it. It's very cost effective, even when at start it's quite expensive, but it's the main and the best in the aviation industry to use, because then you can log in anywhere in the world and off you book your ticket and there you go. But of course, as a startup industry company, we had to use what you would call Joakali, called HIT. I'm sure HIT is very common with those who have worked in ticketings and so on. So I was prepared to purchase and upgrade to Amadeus, which we did finally. We have definitely done that. I also want to respond to my brother Henry's question. Of course, currently, what I've gotten to know is the value of time. In aviation, what matters is not money. What matters is time. So if you can't manage time, then you're held doomed to lose out on too many things. Everything is managed on time. And of course, as you note, we've been very strict with the time, especially to our premier destinations, Nairobi being one of them. We arrive a minimum of 15 to 20 minutes earlier than scheduled in Nairobi. And that has given us quite a very good experience from, as far as feedback is concerned, and numbers shipping out of Nairobi to Kampala, because we know the kind of passengers you are in Nairobi. Time is everything. And that is seen by the way you live, the way you work, the way you walk. You can tell somebody that is time conscious by his or her body language. And once we put into Nairobi, we emphasize time. Time is one of the aspects of life that I've learned in the industry. If you don't manage time, you're finished. 2, teamwork. Teamwork is something that we take for granted, but in an aviation industry, even the hygiene assistant. Of course, I know Henry in your early days at work used to call them cleaners, but they're called hygiene assistants in aviation. So they matter a lot to the driver. A driver losing 5 minutes means it's going to have a spill effect on every aspect of the operation of the day. You've lost 5 minutes. 5 minutes for briefing in for crew, 5 minutes for taxing, 5 minutes for disembarkment. All those have been lost because of 5 minutes of the driver waiting for Andrew, waiting for Wilson or Henry or Toto or Ero or Mahadi or Joe, everybody. So team building, teamwork are very key, and that has given me a great insight on how to manage team. 3, the aviation industry is not to have a cross-racial society. And we have so many people from, can you imagine, as far as Venezuela, they are working here. Of course, that goes without mention, that most of our engineers are from Kenya. And when they're here, until they tell you that's the Kenyan, you can't tell, because many of them have learned to Uganda since then. I don't know their private social life, but I'm sure it has also improved while in Kampala. And thirdly, also, I guess that it has taught me to be very aggressive because of the different citizenry that is employed by the airline. We come from different backgrounds and different work ethic kind of attitudes that we carry into the workplace, the workspace. And this therefore has shaped me into a person who has to be very dynamic at all times without lowering the shield or the sword. There was a question on the environmental conservation. This was one of the reasons why we decided to buy the neo version of the planes. You note that the Bombardiers are also neo, same with the Airbuses, because they are environmentally friendly planes in terms of fuel consumption and disposal. Of course, you note that as you tax and as you're about to get there, you have to dispose of fuel so that you can have the right tonnage, both of cargo and the passengers, besides the body of the plane. So we bought these because they had been certified globally by ICAO as the best environmentally conservative and conserving, therefore, machines. Of course, you note that our colleagues in Russia still fly the Antonovs, which are not environmentally friendly. And in some countries, they're not allowed even airspace because of the nature of their engines. The first question, President Wilson, was about how we communicate when we have overlays or baggage disappearance and so on. We have had to upgrade our electronic passenger and baggage track system, which we place on the baggages, and in case it disappears, every destination where we are operating, we have a baggage officer who is based at the airport. And once the baggage is trolled away into a room and onto the conveyor belt, he has already taken stats and scanned, because before you leave our destination here, he sends the numbers of bags, the passengers, and so on. So most of the baggages, the tracking system is one of the best in the region. And even in some hubs where they're historically known to be prone to loss or disappearance of baggages, were at least excelled. And I think I want to thank management on that note. Thank you, President Wilson.
Thank you, Andrew, for that session. And I think one before we close, there's one discussion that I think is on everybody's mind. So many national airlines are struggling with sustainability, and governments have to keep bailing them out all over the world. How is Ugandan Airlines navigating this challenge? This is from our brother, Christian Ogola from RC Langata. And then there is our brother Aport asks, he tells you first, congratulations on the talk. And is Uganda able to benefit from her oil findings to lubricate her airline industry yet?
Thank you very much, President Wilson. If I could answer your question. Yeah, of course, too many airlines in the world are grappling with the issue of funding. funding is that beast we have to live with as government the moment you choose to walk that path. It's not a party at Nairobi Club or an installation dinner at Madaraka. It's quite a humdinger of an investment for anyone. This is not business for the working hour aero. You can buy your small car and that is okay, but aviation is bloody, fiducially bloody. It means it's kind of a cancer. And in the first formative years of this investment, you have to brace yourself for losses. What can save face is if you developed a very good business plan and if you drove your numbers through promotions, understanding fares and stations. That means you have a very good plowback in the space of 7 to 10 years. Yes, it is true. That question is one that everyone fears to face. And having come from that part of the country, Langata, I'm not shy to say that you know how many times my beloved Kenyan government has had to go to the sick bay to ensure that we have Kenya Ways in space. It's very important that many governments actually run to fiduciary institutions like banks. Many of these airlines you see are probably run by banks, having share, you list and the banks buy those who have fair capital to invest, like insurance firms and other agencies. As a country, I can assure you, it's a tough call. Remember, you're not investing or paying in Kenyan shillings or Ugandan shillings. It's the Benjamin. The dollar is always going to be pegged onto your economy. But if you're going to bleed, because every time you're bleeding out that forex capital, it has an impact on your development strategy, development index. It has also on your planning for other sectors. So it's very difficult. I need to add that the airline is not faint-hearted, but either way, it's like you don't determine your parents. You still have to be in space, because for us as Uganda, our hands are tied. We have to have the airline as long as we're landlocked and as long as we do not have some free movement, both land and airspace from our neighbors. That's the only way we can have, because Uganda boasts of having the biggest sector that produces forex as tourism. We cannot depend therefore on neighbors' planes or aviation business, because a traveler, a tourist, Msafiri wants to travel on time. And remember, these are very budget people in the world. So he says, I need to travel 8 hours. I don't want to connect via Entebbe or Nairobi. I want a direct flight. So for us, we have no choice, but government has to find the money, like that is always done, and it's funding the airline. Fortunately, here in Uganda, all our budget is front-loaded. Front-loaded means that if you send your budget for next year and say it's probably 10 million Kenyan shillings at the beginning of the financial year, they will front-load the amount you requested per quarter. So fortunately, there are very few areas where we can go back for supplementary budgets, but at least when we budget for a whole year, we get to have it front-loaded by the government. I want to thank them for the goodwill, and that probably will see us move for some couple of years. Lastly, I had, of course, he had to hide his name and say Port, because in Kampala we call him Ero. But having been with him 25 years now, I have no reason to forget his name. Yes, we are looking at oil to help jumpstart our country into at least a middle-income country. And jumpstarting us doesn't mean only that President Wilson will be having probably a minimum of $600 per annum as a benefit or a return or an earning, but also means that the oil industry is supposed to galvanize other aspects of our economy and also bolster our financial currency, that's the shilling. Because once we'll have the oil out, then we'll have the dollars, then we'll have the shilling also gain upwards. We think that we are not only looking at oil, we also have to improve in other areas like agriculture. Lest we face the Dutch disease, we won't go that direction. There's been a lot of goodwill and good strategic thinking from the head of state that oil must be used for research and innovation first and foremost, and the rest can be used for improvement of the welfare of the citizens. Thank you, President.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I think last question from your brother from RC Kampala Metro, your president, Emmanuel Mwonge. He's asked, I have a question. How are we going to handle Bombardier planes which don't have spare parts in the market? I think we are just close with that one as we close the session.
President, how I wished that you had disqualified Emma because he's still in internal exams and yet he's one of the lecturers. So, as you note, President, that usually when an airline, an aircraft is new in terms of manufacturing, it comes with a guarantee for those who buy, the country that buys that plane. So Africa, we're very disadvantaged that probably this latest kind of plane, there are about 2 countries that have it, that's South Africa and Uganda. And the Bombardier first point of reference is in South Africa. So when we were purchasing these planes, we had guarantees of spare parts and training as after-sale benefits from the manufacturer. So the moment we got, say, to South Africa and they do not have, say, what we could call a wing pin beam, then that means we have to wait for not less than 60 days from probably the manufacturer in Canada. So it's not very easy, but we know that this was because the first point of reference, South Africa, had used up their quota and thought that they would have their quota marked up in so short a time, which was not the case. So we had one of probably our planes that was grounded for an extra day or 2. It's now in space as I speak. It's the same plane that is flying. It's called, most of our planes were named after our features, just like one of your planes could be named probably Mount Kenya or Naivasha or Mombasa or Kasarani. So one of the planes.
Sorry, I think we lost Andrew for a second there. I hope we covered your question, President Emmanuel. Hope he'll join us soon. Andrew, you still with us? Okay, cool. Andrew, you're back. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that session. Oh, you're muted. So just unmute for a minute. Okay, I hope you can hear me though. So thank you so much for that session. We're very much thankful for you taking up this opportunity to come and speak to us about the Ugandan Airlines. I would like to now invite Rotarian Corinne Mpati to give the vote of thanks to our speaker. Corinne.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, President Wilson. I would like to appreciate our guest speaker, Andrew Tumusime. Want to say Webalenyo for the good presentation, very insightful, very enlightening, and your passion for your work is very clear. And we hope that our engagement with RC Madaraka through our president and other members will be of value. and that next time as we're visiting Kampala, now we know what to get on the on the flight possibly. And for all our other guests from RC Langata, Karen, UN Afia, yeah, we also just, and Kampala Metropolitan, the president, we just want to appreciate you also for attending our fellowship.
Thank you, Rotarian Corinne, for that session. Thanks, guys, for staying with us up until now. And I'd like to move on to the next session. Now we move on to SAA. And I'd like to invite our SAA for the day, Rotarian IPP, Sami Malaki. IPP, please take it over.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. President. Great to be here as always. And great to listen to Rotarian Andrew. Rotarian Andrew, when he went to Uganda last year, he intercepted us from the airport, went and fed us so much. By the time we got to the feeding location, we couldn't eat anymore. He's an amazing host. And it's always great to see him. He's been a great supporter of our club. Okay, so there are 3 women, one dating, one engaged, and one is married. They decide to get kinky with their men and pull out all stops to make it extra special. The lady who is dating says, okay, I bought black leather, red lipstick, fishnet stockings, and really got crazy. He loved it so much, he thinks he's in love. The second lady who is engaged says, I showed up to his work after hours wearing a red coat. Let's say he wants to move the wedding date up. The lady who's married says, okay, I really went all out. I got a babysitter for the kids and I bought a black mask and a wig and a whip. My husband gets home, goes straight to the fridge, grabs a beer, he pops it, sits down on the couch and says, hey, Batman, where's the dinner? So we shall have our day. So the SAA, it's a time for the SAA. For those who do not know, SAA is a time of the meeting where we punish members for breaking the rules, such as late coming, use of device, and making noise during the meeting, and the second part where we do the happy and sad dollar. So we are all Rotarians, and I shall ask those who came late. We can start with Corinne. Florence. Hello, Florence. Nice to see you. We have Jennifer. We have past President Kanake. Lydia and Dirangu. Hope the birthday weekend was amazing. Please send your late coming fine. We have Dr. Mark. We have, who else? Yeah, I guess we have those are the members who were late. Please send your payment to the M-Pesa pay bill on the screen. The next part of the meeting is where we have the happy dollar, sad dollar moment. Happy dollar is when you had something positive, something you want to share. Please, sad dollar is when something bad happened, you just want to share, and you can also give a heavy dollar. Our dollar rate is 100. That's the best rate in the market. So yeah, feel free. So you can either drop it in the chat or you can raise your hand. So we'll start with our lovely treasurer, Keshi.
The first happy dollar goes to our speaker. Thank you, Andrew, for the talk. It was very insightful. The second happy dollar goes to our friends from Uganda, our team. It's good to see you, my sister. The third one is a sad dollar to you, Malaki. You're failing us as accountants and giving us a bad name with the bad jokes. Yes.
What was bad?
The second bad joke in a row.
Well, when you get married for long, kinkiness just slides out, you know.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Okay, I'll try and be nice next time. And that was Njoki.
Affirmative, yes, yes, yes.
Oh, you interrupted the essay. Please send your fine. Treasurer, make sure Njoki Ndungu sends the fine. Any other happy dollars?
Thank you for fellowshipping with us.
We have a happy dollar from past President Kanake. Those are 3 happy dollars. Okay, Kanake, you said 1 and then 3. Oh yeah, okay, 2 happy dollars and the fine. Thank you very much, past President. Great to see you. We have Melissa. She has 10 happy dollars for the guest speaker. I guess for the first time, Melissa's heard someone in our meeting who can relate to, the airline industry. The rest of us, we just complain. We have Christian with 2 happy dollars for Andrew, Rotarian Andrew and Madaraka. Any more happy dollars? Anyone want to speak? Yeah, we have Eric Koport, Carl Eric Koport, 10 happy dollars, 5 for the airline and 5 for Italy. Corinne says she has a happy dollar for the guest speaker and a fine for the evening. Thank you, Corinne, for being honest. We have Fred, Rotarian Fred, 2 happy dollars, 1 for the talk and 1 for Italy. Similar case with Henry Ndirango, 3 happy dollars, speaker, and to the fellowship. Thank you very much, past President Henry. We have Rotarian Lydia with a happy dollar for it was her birthday weekend. She had a great time. Those who follow on IG know, feel jealous. And a fine. We should be fined more for not partying with us. Anyway, we're old. We have Emmanuel, President Emmanuel, 2 happy dollars for his brother Andrew and staying focused during the presentation. Any more happy dollars? Okay, any more? Any sad dollars? Heavy dollars? Anyone who needs airtime? Susan, Rotarian Susan has 2 happy dollars for the guest speaker. Thank you very much, Rotarian Susan. Jennifer has 2 happy dollars as well. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so there being no other happy dollars, I have 3 happy dollars. 1 to the guest speaker, Andrew, thank you very much. Always great speaking with you, hanging out with you, listening to you. The second one is to the fellowship, and the final one is to Mr. President. Thank you very much. I shall hand over the meeting to the President.
Thank you so much, Akiki Malaki, for that session. Thank you for stepping in. So myself, to close the session, I have 5 happy dollars. 1 happy dollar is to the guest speaker. Thank you so much for honoring the call. Second happy dollar is for Monday. Love Mondays. This is and I get a chance to be the president of the club. And the 3 other happy dollars are just for life. And also, but I think lastly, last happy dollar is for not England. I'm happy England lost, not really so much that Italy won, but England lost. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys, for taking time and coming through to our meeting today. I'll now do the final toast. So in conjunction with the Rotary Club of African Nazarene University, Rotary Club of Thika, Rotary Club of Kampala Metro, Rotary Club of Kampala Sese Island, Rotary Club of Nairobi Langata, and the Rotary Club of Karen, and with us, Rotary Club of Nairobi Madaraka. I give you Rotary and the world over.
Rotary and world over.
Thank you so much. Stay warm, stay safe,